Hey everyone, my name is Zakai Curtis. I'm going to do my best to explain this map, this historical map of jazz in the United States. This is a map of a course I built. It's about, I would say, somewhere between 12 and 20 different videos of material. And this is the first one, and I'm going to quickly go through this map to let you know what's in this course. This course is going to be great if you are a student and you are thinking about going to music school, but you want some preparation on the history classes. This is also great for maybe people that are going out to teach. And this is definitely great for fans of the music, people that are interested in the actual history. I love history, and I think this is a fun course for me to talk about. This map here is not to, I would say, to scale, but it's not to a timeline. And it's just a quick overview that might help you understand how I'm gonna approach this. Some of these words should appear in many different places. I just wrote them once. And I'll get started with explaining these top parts. So you have Africa, formal and informal. And underneath Africa, you have concepts and instruments. So concepts are like musical concepts, rhythms, and ways of approaching music. We can talk about that in that video where we discuss this. Instruments, you have instruments like that have come from Africa to the United States, and that would be as many of them: washboard bass, the guitar. Most important one, banjo pops up in the United States, I believe, in the 17th century. And it could be 18th century, but I think it's around that time period. Very important. It permeates American music. You know, you have Stephen Foster, and you have many other reasons why banjo was the most important music to the development of jazz. But it also, you're going to see how it affects blues later, and then of course as it gets, you know, further on, ragtime, things like that. But in jazz itself, hot jazz. But before I move down to this part, let's move over to the formal section, because these are kind of going to meet. So you have your religious and your secular. Your religious is kind of like your spiritual, your choir, hymns. I'm not going to sing any for you in this video, no video. Secular, your classical music, plays, operas, marching band. It's kind of like a formal thing. I just separated them out so that you can see how the music kind of moves in and what time period it establishes itself in. So you also have, as these connect or just are permeating society, you also have work songs, field hollers. Work songs and field hollers we can go into at depth about and how they affect R&B music and blues and things like that later on. Jubilees. Those are coming out of your spiritual time period, and that also has a big effect on things later on. The blues is one of the most important American art form, I believe. Banjos coming out of Senegal, bluegrass, all that stuff. And it's just an amazing thing to see historically. But the blues really took hold in that Mississippi Delta region, in the United States. And I just wanted to put, these were all happening at the same time. It's not like one happened and then this comes from that. No, they were happening in different areas. And sometimes they meet up, sometimes they don't. But Congo Square changes everything. Congo Square, I think that's also 17th century, the beginning, and then it gets really popular about 100 years later. Every Sunday in New Orleans at Congo Square, they were able to practice their music, and they sang and danced, and that actually affected the marching bands heavily, especially with the dotted rhythms that come out of there. That eventually was being called the Spanish tinge, but they were doing that in Congo Square, and you can hear the rhythms online if you want to. New Orleans jazz. Congo Square rhythms, the dotted rhythm, Spanish tinge, you mix that with marching band music. It's not that simple, but you can see where a lot of these are coming from. Of course, with the blues, you got rock, R&B, Latin jazz. We'll talk about that. Stride piano, ragtime. You have a ton of different, I would say, establishing musical styles. So before we move on, let's talk about informal. I just separated them out, but as I was separating these things out, I realized that blues would also be in the beginning stages of informal. Just keep that in mind. In the class, you'll see it'll make sense later. But you have burlesque shows coming in from Europe. The whole concept, that's pretty deep. But the minstrel shows as well, kind of like copying some of the stuff that was happening in Europe, brought over here. They were also developing the music around the entertainment, with a lot of the slaves playing the music. And you can read about that with Stephen Foster. And then of course the dance music. The blues was happening around that same time period. So all of that eventually gets funneled to this vaudeville stage. And vaudeville, vaudeville is interesting. It's kind of like a platform, almost like how YouTube is today. But it's a variety show, different acts come on. You start to understand the entertainment aspect kind of gets built there. You understand how it gets built right in the vaudeville stage. You also have your crooners, and this is just a little later on. I would say you have your crooners, you got your big band, and of course your big band is coming out of New Orleans jazz. It's also coming out of marching band. Yeah, I mean, I can go over Fletcher Henderson, I can go over all this right now, but I will go over it later, I promise. That's the big band video. You have the American Songbook, you had the plays that were written out, and then these blues singers, notably Billie Holiday and Louis Armstrong, start singing American Songbook tunes, and Nat King Cole, Frank Sinatra. Now jazz start to have a modern feel with that. And then eventually you get to bebop, post-bop, Tony Williams. We'll get into all types of things. If you like stuff like this, you're gonna wanna subscribe. Everything that I'm doing is going out of my Patreon account, including private lessons. And I'm building up something called the Curtis Institute of Jazz and Latin Jazz. So if you enjoy this, like and subscribe, and you're gonna get a lot of videos. I'll see you guys later.